This is another in our series of Top SET Conversations. Today I'm going to talk to Nikki Curtis, who's our lead in health, safety, environment and quality. Nikki, you've spent a lot of time in health, safety and environment, and we'll deal with quality and environment another time, but just safety today. Tell me, why is safety important to you?
Well, I got interested in the subject of safety when I worked in the railway, and I went on to study for my NEBOSH, and I have then worked in the world of health and safety for the last 12 years. So I'm passionate about the subject. I find the subject very interesting and take a common sense approach to health and safety.
Another thing about that, you've got very wide industrial experience. Maybe you could just tell me the sectors that you've worked on, at least some of the sectors, please.
Yes, it's quite diverse. So I've worked in the construction industry. I've also worked in waste and recycling and right up to the food and drink industry.
I find that health and safety is a very personal thing. I personally have experienced a fatal accident at home some years ago. That drives me quite a lot. What about yourself?
Well, in my early 20s, my younger sister left school and took a summer job in a manufacturing plant and had a serious injury that was life-changing. And so I'm sure that shaped me. We were involved from the family point of view, and she was in hospital for a long time. And then we had to go through the court case. So I went through kind of a very personal experience with what can go wrong in the workplace.
So it's very important for people to realise that safety is a personal thing, it's not just a company-wide. So tell me, how do we apply that? How do we get people to pick that up in companies?
I think it's really simple. I think you have to go in and look at hearts and minds, and I think that safety is everybody's responsibility, and it shouldn't be a bolt-on to somebody's job. It is part of everybody's job, and it's integral in the success of a company.
Nikki, I have a lot of experience, as you know, of investigating accidents, and many of them fatals, unfortunately. What about yourself in terms of using the Top SET methodology for investigation?
Well, I've been using the methodology ever since I was taught about 11 years ago, and I became a lead investigator. Unfortunately, like yourself, I've had to investigate a fatality, but I find that the methodology can be applied to any failure in an organisation, whether it be a process failure, an organisational failure, a commercial failure. So I've used the methodology for the last 12 years.
It's interesting to talk about commercial failures. It's not just about people being hurt and such like.
Yes.
Picking that point up, we're using Top SET and we're talking about it in terms of post-incident. How about using Top SET in advance or avoiding having incidents? How do we go about that?
Well, there's very good tools within the methodology, such as the indicator cards that's looking at areas of risk that when you're within an organisation you might not be looking at, but these indicator cards point you in a direction that takes you out of your comfort zone. So I found that very beneficial, utilising the Top SET methodology in terms of health and safety management.
Within Top SET, you're also going to be pushing Bowtie XP. It's not a product that we produce, it's produced by a partner company, but it has huge advantages in addition to what we use here. Talk me through the advantages of Bowtie.
I find Bowtie goes very logically with instant investigation and risk assessment. I find Bowtie very common sense approach and a very good visual for looking at risk awareness and also communicating that within the organisation. Everybody kind of sighs when they hear about we've got to do a risk assessment on that, and it's a very kind of staid and it can be a very bland approach, whereas Bowtie brings it alive. It makes you think of consequences, and it also makes you think of more mitigating measures that you can put within an organisation. So I'm a very big fan of Bowtie, especially in the world of process safety.
Yes, I agree with you entirely in that. One of the key words that you used in there was communication. How important is communication in terms of safety within a company?
I think it's fundamental and it's the foundation. When I first started in safety all those years ago, I pushed my technical skills and I used to hide my, for want of a better word, soft skills. So my background is I have a degree in marketing and I also have 12 years of hospitality experience. And with that, you must cultivate your soft skills, your influencing skills, your customer care skills, and that is fundamental in the world of health and safety, especially working in organisations where you have to be an influencer.
One of the things which concerns me, and a lot of so-called professionals talk about getting zero incidents isn't possible. Now, I actually don't believe that, because I spent time working with a big company, fairly local to here, and they managed to have no lost time injuries in a very high hazard industry for 4 years. What's your view in getting to zero incidents?
My view is that I would be looking, when I go into an organisation, I look at high hazard. And I think sometimes we focus on low level first aid incidents, whereas in an organisation it's about looking at the high hazards and preventing catastrophic incidents, and then we work our way down, and that's been my experience.
Yes, I think that's true, but I also find by looking at the small things, it gives you a pattern. Going back to our indicators on our card here, indicators tell me something about the company. You know, just that first gut feel when you walk in. Again, give me your view on that, please.
I think you're absolutely correct. I think that when you walk onto a site or an organisation or a depot, you do get that gut feel. You get a feel for what's the housekeeping standards like, how you met, what was the induction like. So you get a feel for the safety culture as soon as you walk in the door, and that should never be underestimated about your first impressions.
That's interesting. Another point that concerns me is that sometimes you wonder, do we overdo, not the legislation, but do we overdo all the sort of paperwork and checks that we do, permits to work, toolbox talks and such like, that we take people's mind off the real hearts and minds of it? Again, tell me about that, please.
I've had experience in both areas where the paperwork was very onerous, and the other side where the paperwork wasn't quite there. I think there has to be a balance, but there has to be a practical implementation. There's no point having a great safety management system if no one reads it or no one follows it. So I think you have to have that balance of having everything in order, but also making it practical. There's no point having a risk assessment that's 30 pages long that no one reads. It has to be relative to the person doing the job, and I think I'm very passionate about having that in place that is workable.
Yeah, I'm absolutely on the same page with you on that one there. In working with us here in Top Set, and you've also got a huge experience of working with us here, what difference will you make? Not so much within the company, because we know we've worked very hard at our own health and safety within the company, but what difference will you make for our customers in terms of health and safety?
Well, I think the experience that I have in all industries will bring a benefit. I've also had experience about teaching in-house within a company and seeing the results of when you actually bring the methodology in and somebody realises, I found tools that I can investigate properly and make a difference. And for me, working in safety is all about making a difference. So I enjoy going out and teaching, meeting people from all different industries, and also maybe bringing some experience that I've had, so that in between meeting them and teaching them, giving them kind of top tips of saying, oh well, I've come across that before, this is what I did, this is what worked. I find that added value very rewarding.
Yes, I quite like that added value thing, because it's so important for all of us. I mean, we've both investigated very serious things, and it's horrendous to talk to families and people who've seen this or been involved at any point. So if we've got clients who phone up, they want some reassurance, they want some advice on health and safety in addition to what we do for other parts of the business, can you do that for us?
I would be happy to speak to any clients that have any challenges or would like to see how they would like to implement TopSet within their organisation, because I've got experience from taking it in to delivering it in-house, to setting up policies and procedures, to reviewing reports, to making recommendations. So I'd be more than happy to help our clients and contribute to learning lessons and making the world slightly safer.
I think that's very good. I think it's a learning lessons. We have a lot of people asking us to look at reports, so if you can do that, that would be very helpful.
Yes.
Any other points you feel you could help with?
I think sometimes it's reassuring for safety people to talk to other safety people in confidence and that have had the same experiences, because we all have different challenges within organisations, and sometimes it's just nice to speak to someone who's been there, seen it and done it. So I would be happy to talk to any clients and see how we can help.
I certainly watched you in London do a fairly long presentation to the audience, and that was extremely well received. And will you be doing more of that sort of thing?
Yes, I will be doing some presenting at some health and safety exhibitions. So I was asked to present in London about practical implementation of TopSet within an organisation, and you're quite right, it was very well received because people want to know what went well, what didn't go well, and what can I do to make it a success within the company.
Yeah, I think it's important to say what didn't go well, and so you can rectify that. Yeah. Nikki is going to be playing a very important role as our lead for health, safety, environment and quality. And we'll be having further conversations in the future with Nikki and with others about how TopSet is making a big difference in the world today. Thank you.